Well, good morning and welcome to Gospel Greetings number 20. You'll remember that last week we talked about Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Carl Rubin sent me a note and said it was like seeing an old friend you hadn't seen in a while, that warm feeling and remembrance that you get from a verse that had ministered to you. This week we're going to jump ahead to verse 18. Then I'm going to go back and do a couple verses next week. Verse 18, Paul really gets into thankfulness for the gifts that he had received from the Philippians. I'll read it for you. I have received full payment and have more than enough. I am amply supplied now that I have received from Epaphroditus the gifts you sent. They are a fragrant offering, an acceptable sacrifice, pleasing to God. And so Paul begins this acknowledgement of the gifts that he had received from the Philippian believers. It's kind of like Marquita and I. So many of you who are hearing this today have graciously supported us. You've been so faithful, giving and supplying the needs of this gospel ministry. And you faithfully give and provide for Marquita and I, and we acknowledge your gifts, these gifts of love. You so often have also encouraged us and prayed for Marquita and I, and we thank you for all of this. I thank you for the gifts, for the encouragement, for the love, for the prayers. We desperately need them. You know, and on the money side, the checks are made out to Power to Change Ministries, go through Leader Impact to our staff account. But you'll see from these scriptures that these gifts actually go directly to God. Let me give you an example. This is the season for barbecuing, and some of you have gone over to visit friends, and what do you smell when you pull up into the driveway? You smell this beautiful steak with Montreal steak spice cooking on the grill. The smell is amazing. There's a great anticipation. And then you dig in and your hunger is met and it's awesome. And it's interesting. You get the benefit and you get the food. But what happens? The whole neighborhood gets to smell the smell. What a gift. So scripture tells us that our prayers are like a fragrant incense going up before God, like incense on the altar. And that our worship can be like a sacrifice of praise. But here Paul tells us that offerings and support given to ministers of the gospel are likewise fragrant offerings acceptable to God. Like steaks with Montreal steak spice barbecued before God, he's smelling the incense of these beautiful gifts. So you see, you aren't just giving to Paul or to Kari or to your pastor in the local church, but to God. You see, it says they are a fragrant offering, an acceptable sacrifice, pleasing to God. So let's look at three things about these offerings that are well-pleasing to God. I see three things coming from this. First one is that they are regarded as acceptable to God. God actually delights in your gifts. The second thing is that these gifts to servants of God, to the church, etc., are as well pleasing to God actually as acts of worship, like sacrifices of praise, like prayers. They're just like that. They're acceptable before God. And the third thing is that these gifts are great proofs of faith. Martin Luther used to say that the last thing that got saved is a guy's wallet. The last thing to get saved is a guy's wallet. And I am so thankful that so many of you are truly saved and that your wallets have been saved as well. So thank you for your gracious support, your love, your encouragement, your prayers. You supply the needs so that Marquita and I can minister, can share the gospel, and can support each of you. Your fragrant giving is a fragrant sacrifice acceptable to God. So this week, just receive this benediction. And when you obey him, every path he guides you on is fragrant with his loving kindness and his truth. So thank you very much.